Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. As you can hear and see, I'm both looking rough and sounding rough. Well, it was a heavy, heavy weekend, I can tell you. I was emceeing a boxing white collar night at my local GAA club on Saturday night, and I'm still feeling the effects both on the voice and the body. I am joined this morning. You can see the exiled Dub has been exiled. He's not with us. He was sent to Coolmore this morning to do a full, in depth interview with all that's involved. And unfortunately, he's not here. But thankfully, we have replaced him with two more than able participants. Sam Tweed representing the sponsors BresBet of the Easter Cup, and of course, Tom Fitzgerald from Limerick himself, a man who was at Limerick on Saturday night and got to witness all the first round action in the Con Annie Kirby Memorial, which got underway on Saturday, as we've said. But firstly, we're going to kick off proceedings with a look at the quarterfinals of the BresBet Easter Cup. Four wonderful heats, four wonderful winners. And Sam, all in all, it's shaping into a lovely competition for the sponsors.
Yeah, we it were a bit quieter than last year, Ian, the first week. I think obviously bumping into Cheltenham doesn't help. We obviously all the excitement around that meant it was a bit of a slow burner for us, but this week's been a little bit better, a bit more interest this weekend and some good racing again.
And of course, the fact that the final's on RPGTV, you would expect the interest to gather over the coming weeks. And by the time we're talking about the final and the sporting card, there should be loads of interest.
For sure, yeah. I was talking earlier. It's a bit of an issue over here with the kind of feed that you receive. You don't receive Irish cards unless it's televised. So the Racing Post TV one's great, but it's a bit fiddly in the back office creating things manually. But obviously, a competition we sponsor, we want to have that on site and offer it out to people.
Tom, I'm sure you were watching Shelbourne Park on from Limerick on Saturday night, but you probably had other things on your mind. I'd say there was a case of catching up on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, but all in all, great action at Shelbourne Park. And a lot of these dogs we would have seen in the Kirby over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like a child in a sweet shop, I think, inside in Limerick Saturday night. I had the Kirby on one television beside me. I had the Easter Cup in the other one, and I had the Limerick and Cork hurling match right in front of me with all that went on there, so it was like a
forget
child in
about
a sweet
those.
shop
Forget about
watching
those
them.
Limerick hurlers.
I
Forget
look,
about
I'm a
those.
Clare man myself, but it was entertaining watching the three events, to be
You
fair.
always get in the fact that you're a clear man. You always get that fact in. Sam will kick off. The opening heat of the Easter Cup on Saturday night was won by the early speedster. I tipped it to go the other way around with Stream of Sydney, but she just had a little bit of hassle get around Captain Garfio, but it was enough to allow Galloping Sydney to get that lead. He wins by a neck in 29.88. He's such a professional. He has stunning early speed, Sam. As a bookmaker, you're more careful of the ones doing it off the front than you are the ones coming from behind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very uncomplicated. I was just having a look yesterday. I think he's only been beaten once when he's led around the first bend, which is a great dog to own. You know your fate very early on. I think if he leads, you've got a very good chance, and if he doesn't, you can maybe screw your slip up. But obviously got a lot of pace. I mean, obviously what you've just said around Stream of Sydney, thought it was quite unlucky. But he got a little bit of crowding right out of the lids. And if he actually stays inside coming around the last two bends, I think he also picks Galloping Sydney up. But two very nice dogs, and the two that we've actually seen a bit of business for as well, Anti-Post, are probably the two most popular ones.
The thing about the thing about Galloping Sydney is you know exactly what you need and what you get. He goes up strong, and as you said, he hasn't been passed all too often. I think he's a stronger greyhound than last year. Tom, certainly at the third bend, I would have nearly expected Stream of Sydney to pick him up, but he kept digging. Una Creed has found a nice one again.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I know Stream of Sydney well. She won the John Wheel Memorial Cup in Limerick earlier on this year. Very strong running type. She went off the boil after it a bit, but she looks like she's coming really well. She always has to come from behind, and like that, I like to be out in front and catch me if you can kind of an attitude. And Galloping Sydney, he's stuck on well. I agree with you totally, and he's a much stronger dog this year, developing into a really Derby class dog, and it will be catch me if you can get the same break again.
The one thing about Stream of Sydney was she is very strong, no question about it. She is pretty natural starter. So, the fact that it was Capitan Garfio up her inside the other evening, he does the 10 step off a little bit, and that did cause her a little bit of hassle, but there's nothing to suggest she can't take a flyer in either the semi-finals or the final, perhaps. I'm sure Pat Buckley would love to save that one for the final. She could be a bit closer to pace than sort of we're giving her credit for. And if that's the case, Sam, she's going to be a danger to all given her strength.
She is. I think the issue is that it's not the nicest of draws for the semi-final, drawn outside of Bocco's Crystal. I think Galloping Sydney looks absolutely plotted up again. I think he's, like I say, the uncomplicated nature of his run style. I fully expect him to be away and gone again. Not that one of the others can't beat him. It's just that I think on the draw, it just looks perfect.
Yeah, when they're in front though, you'll be showing them plenty of respect. As it is, we will get to the draw, but they happen to be in the same boxes as they were on Saturday night. Streaming Sydney's in 2, Galloping Sydney's in 5. It's just the personnel around them that's changed, and it's a little bit hotter, shall we say. Back in third was Capitan Garfio. He has good early speed, and he's running out of his skin. And even to say that, he's probably the third fastest member of the litter, after the likes of Ballymac Finn, who we'll get to in a moment, and of course Mary's Wedding in Irish Derby finals last year. Crashing out there, Ballymac Joey and Kilcolgan Comet. Sadly, Here Comes Sid didn't take his place. He damaged the stopper bone in the previous round and is now retired to stud. We wish him the very best and a long, healthy retirement to Here Comes Sid. We'll move on to the second of the heats, and Tom, we'll start with you here. Ballymac Finn, the Derby runner-up last year. Hard to believe that, after winning or finishing second in the Derby last year, that you can say he's improved. He looks very much, again, just a stronger, more streetwise performer. He was taking on Swords Rex, who of course won last year's Kirby Memorial, a top-class greyhound himself. He's yet to really get his start in the Easter Cup, but he ran well in defeat. But Ballymac Finn, just a foot-perfect display.
Yeah, and the way he led out straight out, he ran a fairly good line down, cutting at the bend in, and he finished so strong. And that's what I can't get over at the moment, is such a depth of strong running dogs, and even in the Kirby as well. And one thing I did notice, and with the Easter Cup, is there's very little trouble at the bends at the moment. They're all clever running dogs, whether it's been well schooled or what. But he ran a foot perfect race, and the same thing again, catch me if you can. And I wouldn't fancy having to come from behind him now, because he's staying on so strong.
Yeah.
He'll take a lot of beating, to be fair. Ballymac Petsy again, So
Sam, I assume that on the strength of this run, and of course his opening round effort, his price has contracted somewhat.
Yeah, we've now got him favourite in at 3-1. Been very impressed both weeks. He's been foot perfect so far throughout the competition, and there's a dog that looks to really be in peak form at the moment. I mean, previously he was prone to throwing in the odd bad start in there, which could see him get into trouble. But so far this time around, is absolutely flying.
Swords Rex was in second, ran hard. He's not doing anything wrong, but he's definitely a different greyhound in behind than he is in front. When he gets on the bunny, he really just likes to put the foot down and bury the opposition, put it to bed quite easily. He's beaten 3 lengths the other night. It's not a bad run. I met Leonard Lowndes prior to the opening round, one of the owners, and Leonard was just saying, listen, I'll take 4th tonight, I'll take 3rd next week. And he's second. He's going okay. And next week he facing a tricky draw in 4, but it might see him start that little bit better, Sam, which would be a worry for his rivals.
Yeah, I think it looked like a race on Saturday where whoever got the first run would be the likely winner. And on this occasion, it was Finn. But there's certainly a scenario in the coming weeks where you could see Swords getting the first run. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. Obviously, the finishing position at the line where he's 3 lengths behind probably exaggerates it a little bit. But for me, if he were to lead Finn, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he were to beat him.
Yeah, given his back catalogue, Tom, we know exactly what to expect from Swords Rex. He'll produce a run sooner rather than later. I assume Graham Holland and Barbara Lowndes will be hoping it's in the decider, but just it would be no surprise if he popped out next week and did a 29-20. That's the type of greyhound he is.
Yeah, and look, I think I was with you with the preview with the Kirby last year when he won it, and I didn't give him a chance. Why, I don't know. He's with Graham Holland. He popped out that night and did a ferocious run as well. He can. There's no doubt about it. And he's a stronger dog this year. So to make Ballymac Finn favourite, there's a lot of dogs you can make. I think it's a great bookies market in this final. Any dog could win it.
It's far from a 2-dog market, Sam. There's no question about that. There's good depth in this competition.
Yeah, it's a brilliant competition again. Like I said, we were really pleased with how it went last year. This year, touch quieter so far, especially before the first round, as mentioned. But now it seems to always be a really good competition where there's some major players in there, and obviously good pointers for both the English and Irish Derby later in the year.
Yeah. All for the Best was back in third in this second heat. He is some powerhouse. He was a dog that had an interrupted career. Looked like he'd never race again, and he's back and he's running as strong as ever. While anything that he achieves in this competition would be a bonus, I would suggest his main target will be the Shelbourne Open 600, Tom. He's just so powerful. While it's getting very tough now, just given his run style, it'd be no surprise if he qualified for the final, given the fact that he's on the outside, he'd be left to his own devices, and he'd be finishing faster than anything.
Yeah, and how often do we see it? A bit of a hold up at the third bend. If there's any bit of a hold up anywhere, it could really play into his hand. I wouldn't rule him out whatsoever. Any bit of a hold up, he's going to be finishing like a train. But I suppose so is Sydney, Stream is Sydney, so is Ballymac Finn, probably going to finish like a train. But yeah, you couldn't rule him out for 1 minute with the way racing goes.
I assume, Sam, he's in the bottom half of the market, well down there, but not a dog can be taken too lightly.
No, his run style is one of those. Is a great competition dog. He's a wide seed, so he's likely to get his draw in 6 quite often. And also, as you said, he hits the line strong. Any sort of trouble around any of the bends, and he's going to be running himself into a chance of a place. And as you know, if you make the final, you don't know what will happen in it. He's obviously got a chance, but I think what you touched on, his targets are probably later in the year rather than this. But if you keep qualifying, you never know.
Yeah, you certainly don't. We'll move on. The next heat, just the two that failed to qualify there were Crows Road and Pied Piper. Moving on to the third of the heats, and I have to tell you, lads, I was otherwise engaged on Saturday night, but I'm watching back the racing on Sunday morning going, well, Callaway Pro-Am's out in front. He's 2 lengths clear.
Mm-hmm.
This is over. And just inexplicably just seemed to get tangled up in the third bend. Just what I was amazed by was the fact that he left that gap up the inside, and once she got up his inside, you could just see his tail going as if they just bumped a little bit, and he lost his balance for a moment, and all of a sudden the race is gone on him. And you've got 2 or 3 fast greyhounds coming at him at speed. And in the end, it was Stories Cash Out, a dog who last year showed real promise in the early days, in truth has been very disappointing since then, but in the last 2 to 3 weeks, this fellow is running with a real purpose. And it was like, when you consider he's probably the guts of 8 lengths back at halfway, Tom, and he wins going away, picking up the likes of Callaway Pro and Bocco's Crystal, even is it Trinity Junior. Like, it's just a remarkable run from a greyhound who's clearly loving life at present.
Yeah, and again, coming home so strong like that, could you rule him out? I'd like to see him more earlier on, and looking at his cards, missed break, forced to check, quick away, mid, evens away. He needs to be out earlier, I think, to get home with the class and strong finishers that are in it. But I think a few of them were in Limerick because there was great cheers going on while that race was going on in Limerick with Murtalahi and is it Gavin O'Mahony? I don't know who Gavin O'Mahony is, but there was definitely some supporters there for him anyway,
Yeah, Gavin's a great supporter of the game. He's a sponsor of 2 or 3 major competitions and has plenty of good dogs. He had a runner in Limerick, of course. Stories Law was running for him down there with Mert. So they may have been there watching on. Stories Cash Out, Sam. He's much better drawn the next night. We'll get to that sooner rather than later. But an 8-1 chance the other evening, and at halfway you wouldn't have backed him at 100.
No, I was really impressed with him. The way he saw out of the race. Obviously, I think Tom mentioned before that the racing's been quite clean throughout the competition. This was very much the exception. A very messy race. There was trouble around the first, bit of crowding at the third when Bocco's Crystal's gone upsides, Callaway Pro-Am. And I think at that stage, once they've slightly come together at the third bend, there was a good chance one of them was going to go out. It was just a case of which one, with the 2 strong runners come in. But no, I was really impressed. I thought Stories Cash Out got the worst of the trouble in the race and still managed to get up to win.
Yeah. Well, that's always a good sign. Bocco's Crystal was second. She momentarily lost her momentum at that third bend when herself and Callaway Pro-Am bumped, and that probably did allow Stories Cash Out to get the jump on her. Trinity Junior ran well. You'd expect him to be going up a bit faster. When he didn't lead, he was going to struggle, and yes, he ran well to qualify in third. Keeps him in the mix, Sam, given the fact that he can go up very quick.
Yeah, obviously Bocco's Crystal, I thought that it's a dog that's not used to kind of having to come from behind and taking the lead up at the third bend. Normally it's an away and gone kind of greyhound, and obviously it had to change its run style on Saturday. So to guts it out and manage to qualify, I thought was quite a good run. But Trinity Junior as well, I thought I was really impressed with that, the way it ran on. It had to go wide at the last bend. It was very close to turning third. I mean, it's going into the first bend and it's probably going to be a length behind at worst, and kind of checks off and finds the trouble with the winner. But to put a lot of running into qualify, I thought that was impressive as well. And I think they were a bit overlooked on Saturday, but Stories, Cash and Trinity Junior, any kind of trouble in these remaining races are going to be big players.
Callaway Pro Am was the 4-5 favourite. He finished back in fourth. McNeil was fifth, and sadly, Clona Blue was beaten a long way. I feel injured. Callaway Pro Am, just one more thing. Connections were sort of scratching their heads, Tom, sort of as regards what was he doing in the third bend, in the sense where he left the gap, which you wouldn't normally. I spoke to a man yesterday, said, listen, there was a fox floating around the area on Saturday night. And I listen, I don't know about that, but, you know, it was a strange one. You forgive him, but it, you know, you wouldn't like to see him doing it again.
No, and you know, I heard that story as well yesterday, Ian, and I didn't want to bring it up because I don't know how true it is, but there was, and it doesn't take a genuine dog like that much to distract him, you know. But he has, last year I think he was favoured for the Derby final, wasn't he? And he has run a couple of poor races since, you know. You would worry a little bit about him. He should be driving on and driving through there, but was there? Look, a fox to a dog is the greatest distraction of all, even the smell of it, you know. Yeah. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt this time, you know.
That's the thing. Like, listen, don't get me wrong. Like, Dublin is absolutely, when I say flooded with foxes, like my drive home from Shelbourne Park to where I live here in Dundrum, Ballantyre is 15 minutes, and I could pass 15 foxes on the way home, and they literally they'll wink at you. You know what I mean? They'll stand there, wink at you, and jog on, mate. You know what I mean? They're pretty brazen around Dublin. But I'll tell you one thing: it's not a clever fox now if he's walking around Shelbourne Park on a Saturday night, because you can be absolutely certain he's not going to outrun the dogs.
Well, you never know what happens nowadays, you know.
Yeah, no, Callaway Pro Am will be back, have no questions about that. He's amongst the favourites for Irish Greyhound Derby glory, and well, one suspects we'll see him certainly in the second half of August, of course, a much earlier Irish Derby final this year. On to the next and last of the heats, and this was the standout performance. Sam, you will be more than familiar with Romeo Magico, the English Derby champion, of course, a toaster last year. This was more like it. There were signs that he was coming back into himself. Probably hadn't shown the early speed we were expecting to see from the previous round, but on this occasion, he was just dominant. 29.52. For whatever reason, Shelbourne Park, it's probably after all the salt over the last 2 to 3 months just to keep the track, safe and from freezing and whatnot. It's not running as fast as it was. As the salt is washed away over the next few weeks, I'm sure times will start to speed up again. But 29.52 on this track, when you compare him to the other heat winners, this was a stunning run by David Firminger and Graham Holland's Star.
Yeah, I thought as soon as he got to the first bend, it was just a race against the clock. Then it was basically a solo trial for him, and obviously it wasn't a surprise to see him post the fastest time in the round. Little bit harder next week, but the race was just perfect for him. As soon as he's gone to that bend, is away and gone, and then it's really a battle for second and third places.
From a bookmaking point of view, he's returned 8 to 11. You're literally just betting 8 to 11 that he starts. Like, if he even starts on terms, he was probably a 2-on chance. So the fact that he's a little bit inconsistent, the boxes is built into the price.
Well, that's it. I mean, on his day is a fantastic dog. We all know that, and we know what he did last year when he won the Derby, but he has got the issue where he's not always electric at the lids. If he gets it right, for me, it's the best dog in the field in the competition. When he doesn't, he has to do things the hard way, and he's capable of doing so. It's a lot better when they're uncomplicated.
Yeah, who are you telling? Tom, you would have been more than familiar with Romeo Magico. I remember it was it the Kirby last year or the previous year?
Previous year.
Yeah, previous year. He went out in the second round or the early rounds. He had produced one stunning run around Limerick, a stunning run around Shelbourne. He wasn't a man of a greyhound yet, though. He was flighty, he was inexperienced and sort of just inconsistent. And Graham Holland said last year he was a very different greyhound. Of course, he ran up, or beg your pardon, he didn't run up the Easter Cup last year. He was last in the Easter Cup decider, having run up the backside of Susie Sapphire at the third bend for a few strides, looked like he was going to win the competition. But here he is. He's now a Derby champion. He's a mature greyhound. He's so strong. And when you see him striding out down the back straight, he's just a near perfect racing machine.
He is, Ian. What worries me about him is, does he have to be in front all the time? Will he come from behind? He has given us so many great runs, and then followed up with an inconsistent run again after, you know. I think was it the Ledger last year we were just saying that he did a ferocious run and then went quiet, and we were in the semi-final. We were expecting him to do another run again. He didn't do it. His consistency would trouble me. I know he's won an English Derby, and how can you question any dog that won an English Derby? But his consistency does worry me a little bit. Saturday night he did it, a ferocious run. Will he back it up again next week? That's what would worry me a little bit about it, you know. But what a dog on Saturday night. It was some run, to see it, because he was challenged going up, you know. He didn't have he how would you say it? There were dogs all around him, and he still drove through and went on. But it just worries me, does he have to be in front, or will he come from behind, you know?
Yeah, on Saturday's evidence, he mightn't be too far behind. He is so strong down that back straight that you suspect that he probably would get a length than most dogs that are left in the competition. It's a case of whether he can get to the front by the third bend. But yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Toolmaker Wild was second, another one of those strong runners. He'd be staying on very late. And Disco Pants was back in third. He's yet to show his best Kingdom Derby or Gold Cup form in this competition, but he's capable of a better start. We're just not quite seeing it at the moment. Hello, Mom. Giranus Prima Boccos Vieri went out of the other two qualifiers. Sam, they're not at the head of the market by any stretch.
No, they're not. They are in the bottom half of the market. However, I think Disco Pants is suffering a little bit with the amount of seeded dogs left in the competition. He's drawing 6 and doesn't really want to be there. But they're both qualified. I mean, Toolmaker Wild from 29.97 in finishing 6.5 lengths behind in second. That wouldn't have put him a million miles away in some of the other heats. I mean, Galloping Sydney won in 29.88, being a length and a half. It's not a million miles away. It's just that I think Romeo Magico put everything together on Saturday night, and it was then a battle for second.
Yeah, it sure was. Romeo Magico is a decent draw the next night. Let's talk about the semi-final draw, gentlemen. The opening heat, 1 Stories Cash Out, 2 Romeo Magico, 3 Toolmaker Wild, 4 Swords Rex, 5 Ballymacfin, and out in 6 is All for the Best. So we've a lovely mix here. We've got, you know, strong runners and Stories Cash Out, Toolmaker Wild, All for the Best. You'll have the early speed of Swords Rex, Ballymacfin, and even Romeo Magico in his night. But Magico is one of those dogs that can put it together from off the pace. Swords Rex wouldn't be easily picked up if we only turned second. Same could be said for Ballymacfin, but it's going to be a race into the corner between those three, and then it's a case of whether one of the strong runners can pick them up or get involved late. Sam, how do you see this opening heat?
I think it's obviously a really competitive race, and both Swords Rex and Finn are both probably a little bit wider than they'd like to be. I think Romeo Magico's got a great draw again, should he be able to replicate the break that he got on Saturday night. But as we've talked, there's quite a big if around that. For me, I'd be looking at Stories Cash Out. I think the 3 main protagonists there, they can't all lead, they can't all get their ideal race. And I think it looks right for something to come and pick up the pieces. Maybe not to win the race, but certainly to qualify for the final.
Tom, what's your reading of the race?
Yeah, it worries me a little bit. Could we see a little bit of trouble above the first bend? Looking at that now, the makeup of it, I would expect Romeo Magico, if he does trap, to go down and lead them down. But I have that little question mark in my head. If he doesn't, I see a good few of them coming together. Even Swords Rex, he's a long way out. He's going to be pushing in, going down to the first bend. Ballymacfin, All for the Best, you'd expect to be in last place going in, coming out of the second bend. But yeah, looking at it, Romeo Magico and Swords Rex should go down. Stories Cash Out not far away. But I would worry a little bit of trouble. And All for the Best could well benefit from trouble if there is.
Yeah. It's quite a conundrum. Much will depend on which of the big 3 goes round in front. Romeo Magico's big 82-pound dog. He's on the inside of the 3 of them. He's not going to shirk the issue on the opening corner. Swords Rex is certainly due a start. We haven't seen the best of his starting in this competition. Maybe trap 4 will do it for him. He should lead up to a Maker Wild and Stories Cash Out. It's just a case of whether he can get around his kennel companion, of course, Romeo Magico. Ballymacfin, 5 for me isn't a concern, despite the fact that he's an inside seed. If you look at his run, the opening round, he was out in trap 4, stayed wide of rivals, went around them. I think if there's room, he'll edge in. If there's not, I think he'll stay a straight line. I think it's going to be quite a battle. Call it there, Sam. 1, 2, 3 for me, please.
Romeo Magico, Ballymacfin, Stories Cash Out.
Okay, Swords Rex is going to be the loser for Sam. Go ahead, Tom.
I'm going to stick with the 3 outside ones: Swords Rex, Ballymacfin, and I'm going to give All for the Best a shot at it. You know, and far be it for me to knock an English Derby winner, but I just the last 3 years of watching him running, I just see inconsistencies there, and I'll take a shot at that. 3 outside dogs: Swords Rex, Ballymacfin, and all for the best.
Okie dokie. Do I have to call it?
Go on.
Haven't a clue. I just get the impression that Ballymacfin is on a bit of a crest of wave at the present, and if Swords Rex is edging inwards, he might just get that clean run into the opening corner, and if he does get a chance to cut across, I think he'll might just clear the two. I'm going to go for the big three to qualify. I think they're all clever enough. They're old enough in their age at this stage that I don't think they'll do anything silly, and I think you're going to struggle to pick up dogs that are capable of doing the runs that they are capable of doing. So I'll go with the big three: Ballymacfin to beat Magico and Rex. We'll move on to the second heat, and it's no less a conundrum. 1 is Bocco's Crystal, 2 Stream of Sydney, 3 Trinity Junior, 4 Capitan Garfio, 5 Galloping Sydney, and 6 Disco Pants. We're all expecting Galloping Sydney to go up very fast from 5, I'm sure. Capitan Garfio, he has edged off from the inside. It'll be interesting to see how he handles trap 4. He'll need to be on his toes because he's got early speed on both sides, Trinity Junior and Galloping Sydney. Disco Pants on the outside is going to need to find a start very quickly. And then the inside too. Well, the bitches probably do. They probably do hold the key to this race. It's a case if one or the other gets that clear passage into the opening corner, they'll be right there at the finish. Stream of Sydney potentially a slightly better trapper than Bocco's Crystal, but they have their nights. Sam, it's a wide open affair. I'm sure you'll be making Galloping Sydney favourite though, as you look for what's the potential pace setter.
I think I would purely just on the draw. I think in a solo trial, Bocco's Crystal, Stream of Sydney, I could see both of them maybe going faster, but the draw looks absolutely ideal for Galloping Sydney, and then potential for a little bit of a mess on the inside. I think both 2 fantastic semi-finals where there really are a lot of different permutations that you could quite easily see happening. But I just think the uncomplicated nature of Galloping Sydney really, really draws the eye here, and I just think it's a case of get out, stay straight, and ignore what the rest are doing.
Tom?
Yeah, Trinity Junior last year, Ian, if you remember, he was pinging the lids in the ledger, and if he pings the lids Saturday night and goes down, you have Bocco's Crystal on the inside as well. Stream of Sydney could get squeezed unless she's out and gone, I would expect Galloping Sydney to lead down on the outside and him to have a clear run around, to get around and catch me if you can, going down the back and coming home. He has Stream of Sydney coming hard behind him. She'd be a much stronger finish than Bocco's Crystal or Trinity Junior, I think. So I would expect Galloping Sydney to get a clear run out there. Out, gone, catch me if you can. But the 3 on the inside, there could be a bit of hard work between the 3 of them now, getting the bend above,
It's tough. Yeah, this is a tough heat. So much is going to depend on the start. And, from a man that writes hundreds of previews, and you say the start is all important. It's all important in every race, but this race in particular, you need to find yourself in a nice position on that opening corner because it's going to get very competitive very quickly. Galloping Sydney does look the likely pace setter, and I can understand why he will be made favourite. Just feel the Stream of Sydney. Trinity Junior won't move in. That's the one thing I'm almost certain of. He does tend to stay in middle line. I just suspect that Stream of Sydney is due a ping, and if that's the case, maybe she'll be the one to beat. Sam, call it.
Sydney forecast. Not sure on 3rd.
Okay, Sydney forecast. I like that.
Again.
Yeah. Tom.
Yeah, Galloping Sydney definitely to win it. And I'll go with Trinity Junior and Stream of Sydney. Just one, I think being on the inside could come a cropper if they are all concertining below and at the bend, Yeah. So I go with Galloping Sydney, Stream of Sydney.
It is a point. Like this time last year, we wouldn't even consider backing Galloping Sydney out of trap 5, but he is going up fast and true, and then moving across when he has the room. He's not diving in like he would have done early in his career.
And there's no reason to think he won't get the run up outside in 5 with Disco Pants outside him,
Yeah, but even when you see a dog and you're in front of you cutting inwards, it nearly forces you to cut inwards, or you'll see one maybe checking out around him, or it changes the dynamic of the race if he gets out in front and cuts across. Sam, while we have you, just talk us through your prices there, the 12 runners.
So we've got Ballymacfin 3-1 favourite, Magico not far behind at 7-2. Then there's a bit of a gap to Swords Rex at 6s. I think that's mainly draw dependent. I would say four's not ideal, and it's a very tough heat. Stream of Sydney 13-2, Bocco's Crystal 13-2, Galloping Sydney at 8, which unsurprisingly is our biggest loser in the book. I think he looks very likely to qualify. In a final of the best 6 dogs, would he be much shorter than 8? Probably not, but I think you've got to get there, and he looks the most likely to get there out of all 12 runners at the moment. Trinity Junior 14s, Storage Cash Out 22, Disco Pants 28, all for the best 33, Toolmaker Wild 50, and Capitan Garfio 66.
Tight enough at the top there, Tom. Anything that sounds tempting.
Yeah, there is. And I was just going to say, fair play to BresBet, because that's properly opening up the market there now. There's some very tempting bets. What did you say? Was it 13-2 Stream of Sydney, Sam, was it?
That's right, yeah.
Galloping Sydney 8-1. Yeah, you'll be very, very tempted there. And that's proper betting markets now, to really open up like that and give the punter a real option to have a go at it. You're talking about 12 dogs, and Galloping Sydney, I can't see him not being in the final, and at 8-1, 20 quid even, definitely worth the shot,
Sam, obviously you've given us your market, but you have to give us your idea of the winner.
I think I'd be sticking with Magico. I think it was a really taking run at the weekend. I know we've touched on he's potentially got issues in traffic should he not lead, but the weekend was so impressive. He's a competition dog. He's been there. He's done it. He was very unlucky last year. You could argue he was maybe coming to win it, and things didn't go right at the third bend, but he bounced back from that win in the English Derby. I think that he's got the best draw of the front 3 on Saturday for me. I think he should lead Stories Cash Out, Toolmaker Wild, and Sodrex and Ballymacfin may create their own problems. I think should he qualify, he will go off 5 in the final, but qualifying's the main aim here. Like I said, the dog in Galloping Sydney there is a nice price at 8-1 that Tom's just said. You'd be very surprised if he didn't make the final. And it's one of those strange anti-post books where he's 8-1 for this. As I say, he may well be 8-1 for the final if all 6 of the front 6 go through. However, there's a big chance that they don't.
Yeah, there sure is. Yeah, listen, there's no room for a bad final. There are 12 wonderful greyhounds there, so we're guaranteed a good final, no matter the results on Saturday night. Tom, what's your idea of the winner?
Ian, you know what, I find it so hard now to pick between the 12 of them now. Romeo Magico, if he's consistent, will win it, but I have that question mark, and I hate harping back on it. But Swords Rex, I think Graham Holland has a great ability to get them up for the day, and Stream of Sydney, Pat Buckley at the moment is on fire in finals, so I'd put it between the 2 of them. If you push me, I'd go with Swords Rex.
Yeah, I fancy Swords Rex from the outset. I won't go against him because of 2 defeats. As I said, he's due a ping break, and perhaps that'll come in the final if he gets there. A wonderful BresBet Easter Cup. Sam, will you be over for the final, or are you leaving that to the Fat Cats?
No, Carl, our head of trading, is making his way over. I'm not sure if anyone else is. I'll be holding the fort in the office.
Holding the fort. I like it. Sam, you're going to leave us, and we're going to continue talking about the Con Annie Kirby. Thanks, Sam, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good Sam. Good luck.
Bye.
And then there were 2. So it's down to myself and Tom to get into the Con Annie Kirby Memorial action. Tom, it's hugely important in Irish greyhound racing, but also, or especially in Limerick greyhound racing. It's such a short spell of time. Like, it's hard to believe the first one was only 2013, and here we are. And it really is the second biggest competition on the calendar, only outside of the Derby. And we'll be following these greyhounds for the next couple of years. Like we saw Romeo Magico last year going on to win the English Derby. Last year's winner, Swords Rex, is certainly one of the stars of the Irish track scene, and no doubt there'll be a few more stars emerging from this year's competition.
Oh, of course, Ian. And like you said it there, for the last 10 years, this has been the introduction to these dogs to our views and to world racing. And this has continued. Swords Rex, you just mentioned there last year, the winner, featuring so much since. Romeo Magico was in the final, I think 2 years ago, semi-final, has featured so much since. And right through, all the dogs that have competed have continued to compete, and that is the shop window for them. And a lot of dogs are sold out of the Kirby too. Dogs don't even win it or go well, they're sold and they go on to do great things as well. Like, it's brilliant competition.
No question about it. Just before we get stuck into the Con Annie Kirby Memorial, just remind you that this weekend it's Jerseys at the Dogs in aid of the Dylan Quirk Foundation. And the point of this is there will be collections on the night, and they are hoping to screen each and every GAA player over the age of 12, for the reasoning behind sudden adult death syndrome. A worthwhile cause, Tom. I'm no doubt you'll be sprouting your you'll be wearing the yellow and blue, shall we say. I was nearly going to say green and white, but of course, as you've told us already, proud Clare man.
Absolutely, and don't ever forget that. It's a wonderful initiative, and especially in Limerick this Saturday night, it'll be huge. The GAA are tied into the Kirby so much with the fantastic competition for the GAA clubs. So we're expecting a huge crowd and a multitude of colour and trouble, maybe even knowing the rivalry that goes on between local clubs here in Limerick and Clare and the whole lot, But it's a fantastic initiative. It really brings everyone together. The GAA, when something happens in the GAA and the Dogs are so tightly knitted together. You see the same people at funerals and all these kind of things. And great way to do it. It's brilliant that it's happening during the Kirby. And I'm sure the McManus family are fully behind this now, and great to see it happening at this time,
Yeah, I just want to point out to people, I know a lot of people, will be bringing cash anyway because, if we happen to bet and whatnot, it's very much a cash business. But if you are heading to the Dogs at the weekend, make sure you bring a few coins or a couple of notes. And better the stuff that folds than the stuff that jiggles, as Louis Theroux once said. Donate generously, please, again, for the Dylan Quirk Foundation, a very worthwhile cause to prevent similar sad passings in the future. Let's get stuck into it, Tom, because we do have a wonderful Kirby to look forward to, and we have a wonderful opening round to review. Obviously, some of the heats will spend some time on. Some of the heats will pretty much skip through quickly enough. But there were 12 wonderful winners the other night. It all kicked off in that opening heat, and the winner was Road Exile for Pat Buckley, who very much has a strong hand. He's clearly targeting the competition. He has he had a couple of very good winners and a couple of eye catchers in defeat. But Road Exile was the first of them. Well away, led soon. He made it 5 from 5, 4:16, 16:07. Just looked a thoroughly professional young greyhound and still improving.
Yeah, 5 from 5. Wouldn't you love to have a dog like that, Ian, in all fairness, And that dog would know Limerick well. Pat is only out the road, as everyone probably knows. He does most of his schooling and trialing here in Limerick, out, gone, catch me if you can again. Same thing again, Look top class, to be fair to him. 28.44 the week before, or was it the week before? And 28.40 the other night. I'd like to see him early in the night. The track seemed to be going very well and very fast. I'd like to have seen him doing a bit more when he had a clear run like that all the way around. Definitely a contender, no question about it. But is he a winner? I don't know,
Yeah.
But yeah, super dog again, But knows the track very well, Ian,
Yeah, I was talking to Pat late last week. He was telling me that he bought himself and his brother Papa de Oro out of Youghal. And it'd be remiss of me now. I'll be getting phone calls from Barry Drake or Tommy Lyons if I'd mentioned Youghal is the home of these future champions so often. Another good one here, Road Exile. Second to him was Lotto Other News. He ran very well in Shelbourne Park in his previous outing in 28.65. It was a better run than that clock would suggest. Thought he did plenty right in defeat. 5, Ballymac Shawnee was back in third. And 4, Singalong Emer didn't have the clearest of passages. 4, another Pat Buckley trained runner. She wants the fence. Keep that in mind. She's a strong runner. But no, good winner there, Road Exile. Anything to add there, Tom?
No, yeah. I suppose I'd always be conscious early in the competition like that, how much runs a dog has had around a track. Some dogs come to Limerick. Limerick and Shelbourne Park are considered very similar tracks, and a lot of people take the chance and come into Limerick without any run, even without a trial, So if you qualify, 4th place will do you just to keep tipping along. But so for those dogs there, a lot of other news. I don't see him having been schooled in Limerick or trialed. He could improve an awful lot as well,
There was one or two examples later on we'll touch upon where it was clear that if they had been around Limerick, it hadn't been for a while. And they just did little things that you went, that'll find another length or two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Trainers are so busy nowadays, Ian. I suppose it's hard to get them to give them runs around every track before a competition, and throw them in and hope for luck and keep qualifying.
But judging by my phone, a lot of trainers are just busy slagging me. That's what I seem to get an awful lot of. We'll move on to the second heat on the card, and here, Story's Law, after his 28-39 run the previous week, was being expected to go close, but just didn't quite get the start that he did the previous outing. He was forced to check up into the opening corner. He was the fight for favourite. He qualified in second spot, but a lot to like about the winner here. This dog, Beeper's Lariat, I thought he showed lovely back straight pace, led around that third bend and kicked on for Jack Kennelly and Lenny O'Hanlon at 28-43. But I think he's good for better, Tom.
Definitely, Ian. That was only his fourth run. He's a June dog, a locally bred dog by Corona Ryan out the road. A young trainer. I'd love to see this young trainers coming through, and I'd love to see a young trainer win a classic like this, Jack Kennelly especially. But the way he ran, so powerful. It didn't look like he was coming back either to them crossing the line, Ian, and you couldn't 28-43. Again, you'd like to see him doing a little bit better, but for a young dog, you couldn't question that, strong running dog.
Mert Lahey's Story's Law was second. Again, we're expecting much better from him. And Mert would describe himself as a young trainer. I'm not sure if it's particularly accurate. Burj Khalifa is trained by a young trainer, Eamon Reynolds, and he's even young. He looks younger than he actually is. But Burj Khalifa, big, massive striding greyhound, doesn't have the early, but he has loads of back straight pace. And it's just interesting to see how he goes. Of course, bred by the Matthews, who've won this competition twice in the past. And the other qualifier there was Romeo Hanzo. Didn't happen from early. He's capable of much better, but he's yet to really produce his best 22 form this year. Be interesting to see if he does. Boyle Sports Vic would have been a fairly notable sort of elimination here. He's a dog that's well up in the Derby betting, and while it didn't happen from around Limerick, I was expecting him to click, but unfortunately he's gone out. You miss the kick and you do things wrong, and you're going out, such as the level of competition you're taking on here. But no, Beeper's Lariat, a very, very impressive winner. We'll move on to Heat 3, and this was the run of the round. Clonard Duke, Tom, I was a big fan of him. I actually backed him to win the Juvenile Derby last year, and then sort of decided with a view that I still don't think we'd seen the best of him. I still think he was quite puppyish in his ways. This was a thoroughly professional, brilliant run. Papa de Oro is very highly thought of by Pat Buckley. He will certainly come on for the experience. Probably the first time he's really seen sort of a dog get in his way and force him out of the way. And I thought he ran a big, big race in second. Like, if Clonard Duke isn't there, I'm not so sure Papa de Oro isn't doing, close enough to the time that Clonard Duke did. In the end, he's beaten, 5-6 lengths? He's beaten 5.5 lengths, but I think he's good for closer and back in third run faster. But Clonard Duke, this is the Juvenile Derby champion. Hard to believe it was only his 11th race, Tom, but looked the part.
Definitely. And Ian, what would he have done? There was a little bit of a bumping coming up to the first bend. So what would he have broke the 28 seconds? Strong running dog. He finished very strongly, and Papa de Oro, I've been watching him for the last couple of weeks. He was a Kirby dog. He's been running a couple of races in Limerick. He's a very, very good dog, that Papa de Oro, as well. So to not indent on Clonard Duke coming home, and to do for Clonard Duke to 28.07 with a little bit of bumping coming up, you could take a length to 2 lengths probably off it. That was a phenomenal run. And Clonard Duke had a race, when was it? The 11th, 2 weeks ago. He knows Limerick, I'll give him that much. It was a super, super run. Seems to want the inside. 1 or 2, I'd say, will be his line going down to the bend, So will he keep getting that break, that trap? I don't know.
Yeah, he went up straight and through all right, but again, he won the Juvenile Derby from trap 4. He's good from the middle as well. I wouldn't be too concerned by the draw. And given the spread of seeds, the odds are that the big guns will all have to settle for a tricky draw on some occasion.
Of course, yeah. He'll be thereabouts. Why won't he be? Especially he has the early pace to match it going down as well. Papa de Oro is no slouch down his last run, 127. Phenomenal splits like that, in Limerick.
He dipped under the 16 seconds. That's not too often done.
No, 15.98. When you see that on the clock, and and you still see him in front coming home, he's a strong running dog, and even outside the Kirby, he's going to be some dog for the next couple of years, that Clonard Duke.
Yeah.
And of course, he's gone back to the Gullaveni Pearl. Look at the breeding, the new in line back behind that,
Yeah,
and just run
new,
fast.
new in session as a half brother. Like he was an English Derby finalist.
Nice.
A
Dual
very
Duke.
talented. Yeah,
Yeah.
some really phenomenal sort of half brothers and sisters going back to the line. And Papa Dioro, Pat Buckley thinks the world of this fellow. So again, he'd be mighty pleased that he's through. Firstly, he wouldn't be too concerned by the 5.5 lengths.
No, and I think Pat, somebody said to me Saturday night, had Pat either 11 dogs in it and 10 qualified, or 10 dogs in it and 9 qualified, something like that, which is a phenomenal strike rate in fairness to Pat Buckley, you know. Pat Buckley won't be concerned about anything like that. Get him over the line, get him into the next round and the next round, and keep going that way, you know. I was delighted to see Run Faster, owned by Martin Crowe. He was a bookmaker in the old Markets field, and Martin now is in the later stages of life now, but delighted to see a local man with a dog, and the crowd were delighted to see him qualifying in the whole act, you know. It's brilliant to see these people still involved in dogs, you know.
He is a greyhound where you give him the right draw, he can cause one or two of the big guns a concern, because he's very quick, especially if he's on that fence. It's gonna be a hard enough dog to get around. Run Faster. Be interesting to see if the draw works in his favor going forward. We'll move on to Heat 4. Heat 4 was won by Le Conquistador. I thought this was one of the more taking runs of the night, Tom. He broke fast, as did 6 Ballymacneil, but it was the immediate acceleration from Le Conquistador. A son of Broadstrand Bono has made a very bright start to his stud career. 16-11 to the third bend, always in complete control, and wins in 28-31. Easy as you like for Michael Corr. Michael has built up quite a reputation for himself over the last 3 or 4 years. Obviously, Mina Miracle was a Derby runner-up. She won the Cesarewitch. She finished third in the Ledger. Here he is now back with Le Conquistador. And I think this dog is one to keep an eye on in the Kirby.
Yeah, strong running dog again, Ian. You know, it's great to see a dog's going up, 6 dogs going up, and very little trouble. You're always going to have somebody touching above the bend, but to see a lovely clean race and see dogs getting every fair chance to run their race. And he was out in front. He wasn't coming back either, Ian, you know. And like you said, Broadstown Bono, great to see young dogs starting out again. Mickey Carr, he travels up and down to Limerick to school dogs, you know, when there's a big competition like the Ledger or the Kirby. So you got to hand it. Any man who puts it in.
That's not a 20-minute journey.
No. As Roy Keane would say, fail to prepare to fail. But Mickey Carr definitely travels. I think one night he came down to Limerick. He was one of the last races, and the battery went in the van. He had to try and get a jump start and the whole lot, and face into the journey back home then, like, you know. But great guy. Yeah, look, he's a serious running dog. Jeebers, Ian, how are you going to pick, you know, winners out of this competition? And the quality of dogs for the next couple of years coming up is phenomenal looking at this Kirby, you know.
Yeah, phenomenal. It is. And when you take out, like, dead was the wrong term, but just the dogs that are that length or two behind them, and concentrating, let's say the last 48, it's just going to be unbelievable. La Conquistador, so impressive in victory. A Glengar race. He had only 2 sprints in his card. Stayed on strongly to qualify in second spot. Lightly raced dog. He'd probably want to sharpen up early, but I'm sure that will come. He's a March 21, so he has a bit of age on his side, but this was his first 525-yard contest. Stayed on nicely for second spot. Burgess Cannon was back in third for Porrick Campion, and Blast Off Salah was fourth, 25-1. I have a couple of stars beside Blast Off Salah. I thought he showed loads of back straight pace. You know,
I was talking to Philip Buckley, his owner, and he wasn't going to put him in, you know, and he just said for the finish, he wanted to be involved in these competitions. So he had 2. He said, look, we'll throw them in. And the 2 of them qualified. You know, isn't that what it's all about? Like, and the Blast Offs, I've watched them over the years, Ian, and they keep improving. He sold a couple of dogs. He won the Ledger about 3 or 4 years ago with Blast Off Jet, but he sells dogs, and they're a lovely dog to buy because they keep improving and finding time. I don't think any of the buyers have ever had a problem with any dog they've bought. And watch these dogs, you know, right through the competition. All they need to do is keep qualifying.
Yeah,
you know. And
I'm not saying he mightn't even win a heat of the competition, but I wouldn't just write him off. You know what I mean? He was 25-1 in the opening round. He's forced to check at the third bend. Clear passage there. He could have easily finished second or third. You know what I mean? And at that, an eye-catching second or third. So I wouldn't be just completely dismissing him. As I said, Glengar Ace was another one that just caught the eye a little bit in what was his first 4-bend outing. Moving on to Heat 5. This is a real powerhouse of a greyhound. Ben's Teddy. Pat's done the right thing. He's brought him down to Limerick. He's got the experience around the place, and by all accounts seems to love it. Especially if you give him that red jacket, Tom. He's just going to be very, very hard to keep out of the frame if he's in red.
Yeah, no, he got a bit of a favour, I suppose, Saturday night, and that 2 slightly missed it, but he drove the inside of the bend, and he's a phenomenal dog, locally bred dog again. out the road, and he just drove on. You won't be catching him, Ian. If he's out in front, you're not going to be catching him coming home. I think he run a couple of long distance races in Dublin.
Yeah, well, he has a good 600 yard on his. I think did he win 600 in 575 or 600 in Shelbourne? I think he might have one in Limerick as well, actually.
And he has a 550 29.65 550 in Shelbourne Park, which is some going, or is it?
Yeah, he has, like, he was second to Magic Mary over 600 yards in Limerick. You know, he's beaten the length and a half in 32.40, a phenomenal run. He was second to her on the Winter Racing Festival, you know, clocking 32.25 for 600 yards. So he's certainly not stopping at the line. We spoke about dogs needing a look around Limerick. I thought that was definitely the case with Our Mystery. He would have been looking the likely winner from Tralee going into the opening corner, but just sort of drifted around a little bit. It was like, try to get my bearings once again here at Limerick. Just left the inside open for Ben's Teddy, and that was that. He's only beaten 2.5 lengths. Big run by a very young dog with a bright future. Yeah,
Pat Buckley again, wouldn't you know? I'm sure the dog does know Limerick. He was out in front, and he gone down. He moved a bit off the first bend and let Ben's Teddy up the inside. But it's another serious dog. Yeah. Is it he needs to run to Limerick, or is he green? You know, we see all these dogs coming into young competitions.
Just the fact that he's been running Tralee, at a much tighter circuit for the last 4 or 5 weeks. It probably hasn't been able to bring him back to Limerick for another little spin before the competition, given the fact that, you know, Tralee for a young greyhound only finished 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't have said he's been around Limerick in a while, but I think he'll improve for the run. Another son of Droopy's Sydney. Just don't be surprised now if he goes well in the competition. Certainly if he keeps trapping like that, because that's not something we saw in Tralee. You know, he looked more of a strong runner. The other night he popped out and led into the corner. You know, there won't be too many pick him up. I thought, As I Say, was a good third, 16-1, another big price runner, but the Matthews have won it before, twice, in fact. And As I Say was a bit of an eye catcher, ran okay in third spot. You know, he's going to need to find his trapping boots, but certainly not devoid of pace, Tom.
Yeah, and look, I saw Damien Matthews down in Limerick for the last couple of weeks. Another man who was phenomenal work into preparing his dogs for any competition, you know. So as I say, would have been useful. He's actually, I see down, he's a solo and he has a race in Limerick before Saturday night. Definitely, was eye catching, you know. The Matthews always have luck in this competition. Cave, they've won it. Is it 2 or 3 times? I think they've won it. You know,
but they won it with Boyle Sports Hero, and they won it with Cable Bay, and then they were second with the Machine, and a fast finishing second.
Exactly. So Limerick does not hold any problems for them. You know, Ian. Again, I hate harping on about it, but the quality of dogs there, you know, 28-35, you know. Fantastic quality.
When you look at the other 3 in the race, Music Glideaway actually stayed on well to qualify after early traffic for Pat Guilfoyle. He looked a very fast greyhound in Tralee. He's yet to put it all together, but you can see the ability is there when he does find his trapping boots. And being a son of New Inn Taylor, like, you'd suspect he probably can go up a bit better than he has done.
You know, owned by a local man as well, Bob Shanahan. Great to see Bob.
Bob,
again, you know.
Bob, one of the great gentlemen. It's great to see him with a good runner. Of course, he's had luck with Pat in the past. And then you take the 2 dogs that went out, like Droopy's Racer, looked at a real star down in Clonmel. He's gone out of the competition after the early trouble. And New in Port, who won his debut in 28-30 in Cork, has gone out. So yeah, it's not just quality left in the competition. There's been some quality left out of the competition as well. But no, all in all, it was a cracking heat, one to look back on. You know, if you haven't watched it more than once, I'd recommend you do. Plenty happening in behind.
It was one of the hotter heats, definitely. And you know, when you looked at it before it,
there was like, if any of the dogs had won in 28, 50 or 60, you'd have expected it. Excuse me, such unprofessional. New Import didn't run.
He was withdrawn.
There was a reserve. Yeah. Sorry, there was a reserve. That's my fault. Heavenly King was in instead of him. Moving on to Heat 6, where Pat Guilfoyle is good to this type of dog. I don't think he always had him. I think Peter and Cheryl Sutcliffe bought him Scaglietti after a run or two around Shelbourne, and you know, he's after winning a valuable competition down in Cork over 575 yards, and now he's after winning Heat 6 at the Kirby in 28-21. Didn't set the pace, but was never far off the speed, but so strong. This dog, I don't know if you remember the dog from last year, Vincenzo. This is what this dog reminds me of. Very progressive, bought into the kennel, and certainly improving for Pat. This was a hell of a run, Tom. He's another dog with big claims.
It was. If there was a question mark, I thought he should have gone up a bit faster, up the inside. But like you said there about Vincenzo, an aggressive dog at the bend, drove the bend. He bounced, hopped, bounced, gone down the back. He had every reason now to just slip in behind the other dog if he wanted to. But a lovely, strong running dog, aggressive. I love to see that in a dog. And Pat Guilfoyle is some man to turn them out when he gets his hands on them. Strong running dogs, no question about it. Like, you know, the way he drove on, even just coming into the third bend, he was squeezed up a little bit there again and drove on again, you know.
Yeah, son of Magical Bale, who's also, of course, the sire of Romeo Magico. Pat Guilfoyle trailed Magical Bale to well, right. he was beaten in an Irish Derby final from, you know, he was beaten favourite in Irish Derby decider Magical Bale, but what a greyhound he was. But Scaglietti, so impressive in victory. Verratti, I see what you're saying about Scaglietti in terms of from the start you thought he might. Verratti is blistering early speed. That was the first time we really saw him get sort of loose around Limerick. It was his first look at Limerick, in fairness to the dog. He was 28-29 at Shelbourne Park, and that's very much on the bunny, sort of posting sub 16 seconds to the third bend. So he can really race to a corner. So for Scaglietti to be right there banging contention with him on the opening corner, I'd be pretty happy now with that going forward. Again, he took it up the third bend and went on. Verratti was never going to be able to match him from halfway home. There was no question about that. In the end, it's 5.5 lengths. And back in third was Sesame Street, who was for Mary Gilbert and Aidan Cummer, another very lightly raced type, as a not a strange card, but he's very inexperienced. You can see he's progressing all the time. You know, he's posting 28.84, so that's another step forward for him. But I think Scaglietti and Verratti are the two to take out of the contest, Tom.
Definitely. Verratti, would he worry you? Limerick is a tough running track. Yeah. The way that Scaglietti opened up and him coming home.
I think that's where he'll be found wanting. But when things do get competitive and the early pacers manage to slip around in front, you know, it has been won by that type of dog before. Just don't be surprised if he was there in the latter stages, because more often than not he'll be in front, and that's the place to be.
And look, Robert Leeson has won here in Limerick with Toolmaker. Was it Josie when he won the Kirby as well? Like, you know, so no stranger to how to finish a dog out to win a Kirby too, you know. And I've always said this, that there's no point bringing the dog into a Kirby ready to win the Kirby, you know. The dogs that win it are the dogs that keep progressing. I've seen A3 dogs winning the Kirby. Just keep improving. And the trainer who knows how to do that is often the trainer who wins it, you know.
Well, the trend that we're looking at here with each of these, you know, races and the qualifiers is that some of them have 10 starts, some of them have 2 or 3 starts.
Yeah.
And they're all progressive. They're all young. You know, we'll get to 1 or 2 a little bit later on. They have those few more runs on their card, but by and large, they're generally under 10 races. And listen, any dog is only 10 races or less is open to plenty of improvement. One such greyhound won Heath 7. Boyle Sports Dazzle was the even money favourite from the inside. The clock didn't jump off the page, but when you look back at the run, it says Fastaway always led. Doesn't really tell the full story, Tom. He sort of takes a hefty wallop on that opening corner. Bogger Lucky was racing into the corner. Burgess Darcy was flying into the bend to challenge, and he bumped with Boyle Sports Dazzle. He recovered quickly, and what I liked about him was the way he finished off his race. He really did storm up that home straight, Boyle Sports Dazzle. He's still so young. He's 28-28 in his card around Limerick, so I wouldn't be too concerned by the 28.81.
No, Ian, and he's a dog I've been watching from, he raced a couple of weeks ago in Limerick. And anytime you see a Boyle Sports and you see a Dolores Route beside it, you have to take notice. He was kind of my fancy at the start of the competition. He did take a hefty bump above the top, but like you said there, that has to win the doggy, and it has to take a little bit out of him to see a dog driving on again. We've seen plenty of dogs that get a bump and take the easy way out. He drove on strong as well, like, you know, down the back, took a lovely line. In Limerick, a lot of the good dogs, they drift out to the 4 or 5 trap line going down the back, and they cut the nose below at the third bend, like, you know. And it's great to see a dog sweeping like that and running on strong. I mean, the dogs behind him were no slouches. The clock I wouldn't take much notice of. There wasn't, the trouble above at the first bend did take a lot off the clock, like, you know. But he was strong finishing going away, and he ran 2 weeks ago, and Story's Law beat him. So look, there's good form there.
Yeah, the one thing I liked about him the other night was that he actually did show signs of greenness behind Story's Law. Obviously, it was only a second start, so he was entitled to do so, especially around the opening corner. Just sort of steadied himself, waited around a little bit just to find that little, just where he was happy and contented himself. The other night he was driving that corner, he was getting it. He's learned from the experience, and while the clock wasn't there, it was certainly a fine run. Burgess Darcy went out, but just the early speed he was showing into that opening corner, put him in your notebook because he'll win lots of races. Have no fear. Sheila Spillane and JJ Fenley have a nice one there. And Bogger Lucky was second spot. He is a dog that showed loads of pace and promise around Kilkenny earlier in the year. I know Liam Peacock turned down an awful lot of offers. I got a couple of phone calls from people asking about the dog. He looked a nice type. Obviously, he took a hefty bump on the corner himself. He had shown good early speed. He stayed on strongly. Just did a lot of things right. Cushy Island, Morgan Crowley's getting some spin out of this fellow after running so well in the early rounds of the Cesarewitch. Cushy Island qualifying back in third at 20-1. And Ballymac John Joe, he was not just the talking dog last year, he was showing unbelievable pace around Shelbourne Park in the National Puppy Stake. But the more I've seen of him, the more I think he's going to need a trip, Tom. He has a massive run over 600 yards and 550 yards at Limerick on both occasions, storming clear into the escape. He did something similar to the other night. He absolutely rattled to the escape. But are we waiting for him to go over further?
Definitely. And a friend of mine was talking to Shane last year, and he said, "Have you any up and coming dog?" And he said John Joe, and he just hasn't done enough yet to progress to the top class level that the Ballymacs the top dogs are in the Ballymac kennels. But I wouldn't rule him out. His strong running type definitely needs it longer. As the competition goes on,
you took the words out of my mouth. As it gets hotter and more competitive, and he can get a run at them in behind, that's when he'll probably come into his own.
Yeah, and especially with the Ballymacs. They're tough dogs. Have we ever seen a sprinter? Very rarely you've seen a sprinter in the Ballymac. Barry, you go back to Ballymac Best or that far back. Yeah. They're all tough dogs, and that art of illusion is throwing them all very, very tough. And Ballymac Anton, he has won the Ledger. What else? He won a phenomenal.
Yeah, he's just a phenomenal greyhound, Ballymac Anton, and he's throwing dogs in as similar enough guys. Like, they're very strong runners. Some are early, but by and large, they tend to all run through the line and home. So yeah, keep an eye on them going forward. That was Heat 7. Moving on to Heat 8, and this was Sober Glory, and it was all very straightforward for Sober Glory. Early pace led the rest of the way, 16-17. Just a nice start. Carl Ramsbottom has another nice dog in his hands. Obviously, he's bred in the purple. He's out of Kilzaggy Jan. Another one or two of that litter have shown real promise. Kilzaggy Jan, of course, the dam of Skywalker Barry. Just a nice type on the bunny. I'm sure he'll improve. He'll probably need to a little bit, Tom, but for his second runner on Limerick, more than pleasing.
Yeah, definitely. It was a nice clean race as well, and there was a small bit of trouble at the first bend above with the 5 dog at the back of the field. But it was a lovely clean race as well. He didn't do enough for me to be eye-catching enough, He didn't pull away like some of the other dogs have pulled away coming home. Like I said, it's only his second run possibly around Limerick, unless he's been trialled around the he's Droopy Sydney. You couldn't rule him out for 1 second, Carl Ramsbottom has had no luck in Limerick there for a long time.
Yeah.
What a lovely guy, but sometimes you just wish he's got turned upside down once or twice. You just wish that things would turn for him, But yeah, it wouldn't rule him out for 1 second,
Yeah, the one thing you can say about this dog, that he is straightforward. We know what he's going to do, and draws go well for him with a little bit of improvement. Yeah, there's nothing to suggest that a dog that just doesn't do anything flashy can still go on and progress. I liked him. Nice dog. Great time Hugo in second spot. Just couldn't quite get around Ballymac Pete into the opening corner. Did then and set off after the leader, and he's only beaten a length and a half. He has a big run over 550 yards around Cork, so he'll always be running to the line. The O'Connells, they breed. They've bred some very fast greyhounds in recent times, and this is very much a homebred by Gaytime Hawk out of Gaytime Turville. Gaytime Hawk was a proper greyhound, and Gaytime Hugo is a really strong runner. They'll have fun with this dog through the year. He's a February 21. He's only had the 6 starts now. He will stay that bit further. You could see him running well in sort of 550s later in the year, perhaps Derby time, or even a 575, 600.
Yeah, but you wouldn't rule him out of here yet either, Yeah. Again, Ian, it was one of those heats that I hate saying it now, but it didn't excite me, It was kind of a bread and butter heat. They went through the motions. Very little trouble in it. The dogs ran well. Gaytime did his bit. Sober Glory out in front prodded away, fine, bread and butter. Didn't excite me, but maybe that's the one that the winner's going to come out of now and put egg in my face. You had the two Ballymac dogs in it. Did they qualify?
Ballymac Bronze.
Both of them qualified. Third and fourth. So anytime you beat any of the Ballymac dogs, you must be a decent dog, Ian.
The Ballymac Bronze dog is interesting. Like, he's 18 starts, but I know they don't overly school them, but he really seems to be learning on the job, even after 18 starts, just not quite doing things right. And a penny will drop with him. He has loads of gears. He got up in the line to qualify in third. He'd taken a tumble at Limerick in his previous start. He trialled in 29.57 around there. That's not good enough, but like, this dog is 28.30 on his card. Just don't be surprised if he takes another leap forward next week, and just surprises one or two people. There's plenty of gears there. Ballymac Pete, he's Cooper out of Ballymac, or could have any pet. Just looking at him the other night, I'd say he's the type of dog that will probably need to be on the bunny. I wouldn't have said he's their strongest.
No, Ian, but they still have the two dogs, and that's a statement from the Dowlings in itself. They don't keep dogs unless they're capable of winning a classic, So the fact that the two of them are still there, who are we to question anything for all of the Dowlings,
Absolutely not. Moving on to Heat 9. And this was won in good style by Boyle Sports Gift. Another very straightforward run, similar to a Sober Glory, dare I say. Popped out, led all. Boyle Sports Gift for John Boyle and Paul Hennessy. Of course, we mentioned John Boyle earlier on. He had a good winner in Boyle Sports Dazzle. This is another talented type. Just very straightforward winner. And 28.39 wasn't the fastest run of the night, but did the business. Paul Hennessy wouldn't have had him fully tuned up. You'd assume there'd be a bit more to come from this fella.
Absolutely, Ian, and I would have questioned the time too. But I've noticed Limerick, as the night goes on, and you said it there earlier on with Shelbourne Park with the salt and the tracks slow down as the night goes on. So 28.39 from the clear run that he had all the way around would disappoint you, but keep that in mind that it was later in the night. A strong running type, Paul Hennessy, that dog is far from finished. He has, well, I suppose he has 14 races, and so he should be very, very fit, I suppose, at that. I don't see him as being a winner long term, but he strided out going down the back straight, and he really opened up, to be fair.
I would have said Paul's best hope of winning it was Boyle Sports Vic, but he went out. He is a nice dog. Draw was against him, just didn't quite happen for him at Limerick, but keep an eye on him. He's prominent in the Derby betting, as we said. Behind him was Hovek's Tommy for Graham Holland, another qualifier for Graham Holland, and two of his great supporters over the years, Graham Ash and Sean Gresham, this son of Law Hill Blake, only had the 4 starts on his card, and he has shown promise around Clonmel. He'll want to be doing things right in the early yards to progress in the competition. Clonbrien Treaty was another qualifier for Graham in third. I've saw this fellow's first 2 starts at Shelbourne, and then he ran at Limerick last week, and then again on Saturday night. He's walked from traps in his 3 starts today. Now, the other night was actually an improvement, believe it or not, but he can absolutely rocket into the opening corner. And the other night, from the start to be as close as he was on the corner before running off and finding traffic, I don't know if it's going to come in this competition, Tom, but there's a massive run in him. And it could cost you a fortune until it happens, but there is a massive run in him.
Yeah, we're talking about aggressive runners there, and he caused the trouble. No, it wasn't bad trouble, but it was actually 5, 2 who qualified as well, who got the worst of the bump. But he did run the bend, and he was coming up to really...
It was just a puppy mistake. He was flying into the opening corner, was sent sideways, and just, massive run in him.
Yeah. Graham Holland, he has a huge hand in this again this year, don't rule him out. Clonbrien Treaty, we had Clonbrien, the good dog there a couple of years ago. Hero, a phenomenal dog as well. And the Murphys, they're not too far from Limerick Track either. They have great luck with dogs and the whole lot, So,
And obviously, out of their own bitch, Clonbrien Millie. Toolmaker Stan was back in 4th spot. He wasn't left with much option on the opening corner, but just hope for a qualifying position. He was badly balked, but he has dirtied his own bib in the past, but he's shown also on occasion that he's exceptionally fast. And again, if you're in a heat against him next week, just be wary. He's more than capable of doing a 28-20 run. Have no fear of that. The 2 that went out there, Balnaboula Bear and Mendelssohn, Mendelssohn's particularly lightly raced, so he'll improve, as will Balnaboula Bear. You feel, but just no luck for them the other evening, both finding traffic. On to Heat 10, and this went to YI Man. We spoke of Robert Gleeson a moment ago. Well, this fellow is capable of a big run also. He's a 28-26 in his card at Shelbourne Park. He's won over 600 yards around Newbridge. So a strong runner, and that was evident the other night. Just cleared the opening corner, sort of allowed the dog slip up his inside. What led him off the second bend? Excuse me. It was a Milridge Levy, moved up the inside off the second bend to take it up for Don O'Mahony. But YI Man was strong again. He rallied in the run in to get there in 28-63. Again, he's capable of better, but it was a good start for a dog that doesn't seem to have any Limerick form in his card.
Yeah, definitely. And just to qualify, if you haven't any run here, it's fantastic, not to mind winning. But again, he drove that bend above Ian. He just got ahead of two going up and cut in and drove that bend. Was headed going down the back then by the Milridge, the dog that finished second. But you love to see a dog that sticks at it, and comes home strong. He only got up by, was it a half length, was it?
Yeah, he wins by, no, he only was short head. It was a short
tighter even, like, you know. The four of them nearly crossing the line together, actually. Yeah, it was a very close finish. Yeah, nice looking dog. Robert Gleeson again. So he's no stranger to how to win a Kirby, you know.
Yeah, he certainly isn't. Second, Milridge Levy for Donny O'Mahony. Third was Burgess Bulger for Sheila Spillane and JJ Fenley. We must take this opportunity to congratulate Sheila Spillane on being, she's been introduced to the Hall of Fame this year. A very worthy recipient. And again, a strong Burgess hand. There's more than one or two of them. Certainly not even the ones that are in their own hands anymore. There's a few bred out of Burgess bitches that are still in the competition. They produce some fast ones. Perhaps this is the year they have a Kirby winner. This fellow, it didn't happen from the early yards. He's capable of going up a lot better than that. He did run on well.
He did, and I suppose he has 20 races under his belt, you know. He's a fairly seasoned dog, so you'd expect him to be very fit. Is he a potential winner, Ian? I don't think so.
Probably not, Tom. But again, just, we're going to try and give people a few winners or heats maybe, or dogs to just keep an eye on for trios and whatnot. He's a strong runner. If he gets the right draw, he's certainly capable of playing a part. Belinda's Finn, he was the odds-on favourite. As you said, just didn't quite get the run into the opening corner. Looked so strong in his previous victory. He finishes fourth. He qualifies. Again, when things get hotter, he might be better suited, funnily enough, by better company. Getting a run and picking his way through them, but he'll probably need to show a bit more early toe.
Yeah, and he has 28-44 in the cards, so Ian. So, and he's with Michael O'Donovan, so he's no slouch. He's going to be thereabouts anyway, definitely as well.
Another Kirby winner, Michael O'Donovan.
Yeah, where you go, Stonepark Leo.
We'll move on to a different dog to Stonepark Leo, I fear. Quite the same early speed, but we'll be certainly staying on strongly every night. Speaking of dogs that stayed on strongly, he's 11, went to the wonderfully named Mr. Incredible. Another son of Malachi. We were taken by one of them earlier on the card. I can't remember what it was. It was a very impressive winner. What was the Malachi winner earlier on? Anyway,
Clonagjuke, was it?
Oh, Clonagjuke, of course. Yeah, the juvenile Derby champion. This was another fine performance out of Druppy Saga. She was a very strong runner herself, and it looks like Mr. Incredible is too. 28-69 wasn't the fastest run tonight, but as you said, it was going back as the night went on somewhat. And lots to like about this fellow. And Brendan Matthews has another one through. And I just wouldn't be surprised if this fellow featured in the sort of the last 24 or so. He's very strong. He'll be trying to run into the frame.
Yeah, Ian, and the way he ran Saturday night, I was just looking there. He came from, I think he was last place going up to the first bend, and came through to win. If the machine rings a bell, that dog, the way he used to run as well, coming from behind, it looks something very, very similar. And I was just looking, he ran in Limerick twice. He came from 6th to 5th to 3rd, and finished 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 3rd. So, and the other night he came from last to win. So we know he's going to be finishing like a train. Problem with these dogs is, can they get through traffic?
You'll be getting on him when there's 4 or 5 early pacers in the race, and that he'll plot his way or in behind. And if any traffic up front, this fellow will be launching his challenge late.
Like a train.
Knockboy Currah was a 16-1 chance, but he set the pace, but just couldn't quite hold on. I would say he's a travelling companion for a few more of the Pat Buckley trained runners. I'm not denigrating the dog. He showed lovely early speed, and I'm sure he's still progressing. He's only a June whelp, but this run probably wasn't good enough to suggest he'd be winning at Kirby. Ryhope Beach was the 1-3 favourite. Tom, obviously, he trialled exceptionally well around Limerick 28-10. He looks so fast in the early rounds in Tralee. Just starting to show sort of one or two flaws. He didn't really show the early speed needed in the semi-final, the third round of the Juvenile Classic at Tralee. Went out on that occasion. He found himself last into the back straight in this occasion, ran on very strongly to qualify in third spot. So, credit to him there, but he'll want to be brushing up in his starting.
He would, Ian, and he had a lovely run last week, 28-10 in Limerick, solo. The other night, he was surrounded by 5 dogs. Now, I know he has 3 races in his card. It does take some dogs a little time to get a bit of confidence up, He missed it completely the other night, went up to the first bend and plodded away behind it, and then decided, once the gaps opened up, the dogs started getting tired, which I think the dog in front was tiring coming home. As you said there, the knockboy Curraheen dog, I don't think he's going to be Pat Buckley's real contenders. So the race suited Ryhope Beach to qualify, but if he was in a faster heat, and he was going to be in trouble, coming home. Is he tired, or is he just finding his way? But
I'd say it's just inexperience. I'd say it's inexperience. Now, we're only talking about him like this, like he still ran well to qualify. He's still a very fast greyhound, but like this was the dog that was back down to 6-1 favoritism for the Kirby. You know what I mean? It didn't look like a 6-1 favorite for outright glory to me. I thought it was a very short price for a dog with his inexperience. And while I've no doubt he's an exceptionally fast greyhound, just want to be doing things right to justify favoritism for outright glory.
Yeah, Ian, and we see it every year in the Kirby. It's one thing coming in and having flashy runs done at other grades, and you come into the Kirby and you're coming up against top class dogs, so possibly surrounded by 5 28-50 dogs, and you have to do it then. You have to win your race down to the first bend. You have to win your race through the first bend and coming out of the second bend, and you have to finish strong, and I hate being critical of any dog, but does he like competition? Does he like to be it put up to him all around him? We'll see. 28-10 the week before.
It's very early in his career, and his 2 starts were really solo trials. So he's only found himself in behind twice. So we'll certainly give him the benefit of the doubt. There's no question about.
I'll take him in if somebody wants to give him away.
I'd nearly dig deep myself if we could get him for a nice price. The other qualifier there was Blast Off Mac at 20-1. Another Blast Off dog making his way through for Philip Buckley. Yep.
As I said, Philip, I met him Saturday night, and he just said, I throw them in. I wanted to be involved in the Kirby. He said, and there you are.
He certainly is involved. He's
a dog. Week. Yeah, I said it earlier on. Philip's dogs run on, so don't rule anything out there either,
Yeah, and on to the final heat of the round, where Teresa's Mendoza, again, Frank, the Tralee form, the Juvenile Classic. She didn't take a flyer, but she showed good early speed to force her way through the inside on the opening bend. Took a bump or two in the process, but went on to win by 8 lengths in the end in 28-64. Traffic in behind for those that were second and third. Sonia Egan Grande was second. I'm glad I'm not commentating on that just yet. Cree Jojo was back in third, and Good Maestro qualified in fourth. He's capable of much better, have no question about that. But Teresa Mendoza is the one to take out of the race. Another winner for Pat Buckley.
Yeah, things went her way, I think, a little bit Saturday night. Will I say they went her way, that she had a phenomenal break, or was it the dogs around her didn't break as well, and she got a clear run up? There was a bit of trouble above at the bench. She came off the better side of it, opened up, then gone down the back straight. And Ian, I was there Saturday night, and the roaring, and it'll be brilliant if this dog keeps going through the competition, because there's a couple of syndicates in it, and the spirit that was there on Saturday night for these kind of dogs, it's fantastic. It creates, there's a buzz, there's a hair in the back of your neck kind of moment, like, when these dogs start winning and the cheer goes up and you can see the excitement in the face. But yeah, it looks like a serious bitch now. Droopy Sydney again, Burgess Hilly, you just mentioned a second ago, the Spillans, brilliant. She'll be thereabouts, Ian. I can't see a whole lot taking her on,
Yeah, she's a very, very fast greyhound, Teresa Mendoza. Of those in behind, Sonia Grande for Jack Kennelly again, another runner through for Jack. Cree Jojo looked a very nice prospect in his previous outing at Limerick. He'll want to be you're repeating that start, but he's still there and he has a chance to progress. And good maestro back and forth. As I said, good maestro, 28-27 around Tralee in the opening round of that juvenile classic. Still very much getting to grips with the game, but better to come from him. Anything there that catches your eye?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Cree Jojo, third place, 2 races. That was the third start. They're the dogs. And look, I love to see a dog with 3 or 4 or 5 races coming into the Kirby, because there's loads left in them to improve. So any of those kind of dogs, good maestro, Pat Gilfoyle, how could you ever rule him out? John Kennedy holds on to him. John holds on to the good dogs, if you ever notice. He says on the other ones, and the fact that John Kennedy has kept this dog, he thinks an awful lot of him,
Yeah.
He's plenty of dogs to bounce him off or measure him against, hasn't he, over the last couple of years? So
he certainly does. He certainly does. They've become something of a champion factory down there, the Kennedys, and with their association with Pat Gilfoyle, plenty of success in recent times. And who knows, good maestro could step forward and go on to win the Kirby. It's a wonderful competition, Tom. To be honest, we've talked a lot. We've gone through the 12 heats. We won't really have time to look at the second round draw, but all evidence would suggest that this Kirby is going to be as strong as any previous renewals. The star of the opening round was no question Clona Duke. He will be in action again, of course, on Saturday night in the second round. He's racing from Trap 4. I didn't feel Trap 4 would be a concern for him. The fact that Run Faster is on median and is outside is more of a concern for me. But just looking at the makeup of the race, Heat 4, Trap 4, he'll be hard enough to beat.
Yeah, I suppose it's not one of the hotter heats seen, to be fair, or second round heats, to be fair. He should qualify. The man who's handling him as well, he knows how to get him through. So yeah, you can't see him being beaten in that heat. There is hotter heats, but try and pick a winner out of it now, Ian. It's next to impossible.
Yeah, and
you could give any odds nearly in any of the dogs,
And the breakdown of seedings is important. It's worth pointing out that we've only 5 wide seeds remaining, and how many inside seeds? Is it 5 inside seeds or 5 middle seeds? So if you are a dog that wants to be on the outside, you're certainly going to get your draw. And then again, you see dogs like La Conquistador or Gaytime Hugo, Our Mystery, Story's Law out in 5, Run Faster's out in 5. Dogs like this that do want the inside. Teresa's Mendoza, she's out in 4. The draw is going to be hugely important going forward.
Yeah. Rye Hope Beach, I just seen there in the last heat, is out in 6. You'd like to see him doing something. I know he's a middle running dog, a middle seeded dog. You'd like to see him doing something now next Saturday night. Is 6. It shouldn't cause him a problem. If he's a middle running dog, he should have a clear run down. Papa Diora out in 6 as well. I don't think he wants to be out that far. So there's a lot of winning in any competition. There's a lot of winning, because you don't get anything your own way, but you're going to get the same trap every single night.
Papa Diora was obviously a change of seeding, because he was 2 in the opening round.
And has he gone completely wide now or middle?
No, he's middle.
He's middle, and he's got 6.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough little test for him now. There's plenty of early speed there. The same for Rye Hope Beach. The one thing you notice about Rye Hope Beach's race is that they're all fast. They're all capable of a good 28, 30 or 40 run. A good maestro didn't happen from the other night. But again, he's 28, 27 on his card. Mr. Incredible. We saw how strong he looked the other night. Burgess Bulger, he's a 28, 30 on his card, well housed on the fence. Kyle Torn Jerry will be the outsider of the party. But even he is a 28, 78 around Limerick. And, just can't be ruling out any of those runners in that final heat. Tom, a great competition. What's your idea of the winner at this moment in time? Or is it even futile sort of guessing?
I'd say you could take a dart and just throw it at them, Ian. Look, Mr. Incredible was very impressive. Has he enough early to be in the mix in a final against top class dogs? Rye Hope Beach at the start was the favourite. I don't think he'd be the favourite now, but you wouldn't rule him out either. Boyle Sports, is it Gift? The one Dolores Ruth has. I've been watching Dazzle watching the last couple of weeks. Very impressive. Pat Buckley's dogs are going to be there in the mix. They know the track so well from being schooled down here. Papa Diore, very good looking. Ben's Teddy, I just feel one thing about Ben's Teddy is that he has a lot of running down. He's 14 or 15 races, so he's not going to improve the same way that some of the other dogs are going to improve,
Yeah.
And as I said earlier on, I'd love to see a dog coming in with 3, 4, 5 races, because there's more left in them, and especially coming to Limerick that they'll find more. It's a tough competition to win, and Limerick is known as a tough track, a tough running track. So will time catch up with some of those younger dogs too. So it's hard to get the balance right, you know.
From a local point of view, there are plenty of dogs there with a sort of local interest, but also the big names are there. You know, you look at Graham Holland, Pat Buckley, Robert Gleeson, Carl Ramsbottom, Michael Corr, Pat Guilfoyle, Michael O'Donovan, Liam Dowling. You know, you can go on and on and on. Like there's so many top trainers left in the competition with so much firepower. It's going to get pretty hot pretty quick, and it's already hot.
It is. And the one thing I noticed, and I just ran through it quickly, is the amount of foreign owners we have in both I counted it 16 out of the 48 left in the Kirby are English or Spanish or Scottish owned dogs. Something similar, about half the field or a quarter of the field in the Easter Cup. So the English, I just noticed now, the English are buying the dogs to leave them here to run in our competitions, you know, which is great to see for the Irish sellers. And look, of course, you want to see a local winner. Stone Park Leo won it there a couple of years ago. It was a great night. Whoever wins it doesn't matter. And I mean, for the McManus family to put up such a prize fund, you know, they're putting 160,000 into this competition. It's worth an awful lot to Limerick. It's worth an awful lot to the Limerick GA clubs. It's worth an awful lot just to the sporting Limerick. As I said there early on, Ian, I sat down watching the Easter Cup, the Kirby and the hurling match, and we expected a very poor crowd because Munster were actually playing at 5:00 in Limerick as well. Yeah. So we were worried about the crowd, but the crowd that came in Saturday night was phenomenal. So Greyhound racing is back. It's back in strength. And for these big competitions, if we could have more of me, and if we get more sponsors on board for these 20, 30, 40,000 pound competitions, 80,000 even, if they're willing to give it.
Thankfully, there are sponsors coming on board. We do have a few more new sponsors. Like there was a tough year or two there where they were low on the ground, but no sponsors are coming back into sport and we're flying. Just a few more mentions here. Pat Buckley, we've been speaking about a lot. Obviously, he won the Cesarewitch once again yesterday at Mullingar. Bobsleigh Dream, what a star. Obviously, she is your Ledger champion. So I'm sure there was plenty in Limerick shouting her home. It was over early. She flashed out a 4. She got across.
Out and gone.
Bob's your uncle, Fanny's around. She was just very impressive.
Yeah, out and gone. And in Limerick, in the Ledger, she was coming home strong, you know. So that bitch has everything. She really has everything. I'd love to have her now in the kennel to go breeding off, you know. And Willie Joe Murphy, who owns her, like, you know, he has some gem in his hands there to go breeding off. Not to mind her, the mother that he has already, like, you know. But it's great to see these guys who breed and hold on to the dogs, Ian, you know, and get the wins out of them. You know?
Absolutely, very much so. Like she certainly prices for Willie Joe anyway. I can't imagine he'd be selling her anytime soon. And I'd say he already has probably the first 2 litters accounted for.
Well, yeah, if I could snaffle one myself, I'd actually do it, Ian, you know. It's not to say that she'll breed on. I'd nearly rather one out of her mother, you know, the one that is proving that she's going to breed. It's a bit like Susie Sapphire. Would you prefer one out of Susie, or would you prefer one out of her mother, like, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Take me either way, you know?
We'll move on from that. Well done to all involved at Mullingar. It was a wonderful Cesarewitch once again, and again a female winning it. It's quite a run of female success now in the Cesarewitch between Mina Miracle, Amazing Alice, Magical Mary, now Bobsleigh Dream. 4 female winners in a row. The Brownstown Tango and Newbridge track supporters open a race final took part on Friday night in Newbridge. A wonderful competition again, won by Chelms Ramona. You spoke, Tom, of UK owners. Well, this one is owned by Lee Harris, the Chelms man, who has left her in Ireland. She's now with Peter Cronin. Billy Dunn is still down as a half owner, but I believe Lee Harris has bought the full share. 28.49 off the front. Just progressed all the way through the competition. That's all you want with these youngsters. And a daughter of Ballyhimmock and Jet, who in a very short spell of time has made quite an impression.
Yeah, he's I'm going to my bitch there due to break any day, and I'm going to him by Droopy's Jet himself, you know, but he's a phenomenal success rate if you look him up there.
He only has a handful of litters and flying,
Yeah, and some bitches had very little thrown before they went to him and threw great dogs to him, which is a great sign of a stud dog, you know. I think we've won in one of the Boyle Sports.
Boyle Sports Gift is Ballyhim. And so is Boyle Sports Vic, who went out, but we'll be seeing plenty of him over 550 yards, have no fear of that. And one last mention, we want to mention the McCalmont Cup. Of course, a very famous competition, won twice by Spanish Battleship back in the 1950s. It was won on Friday night, should I say, at Kilkenny. Beg your pardon. I went into the wrong results, of course. I wrote the report. Just the head is now gone. It was won by Lynchy Boy, who's been such a star for Porrick Campion, a dog who has always favoured the inside of the track. He got 2 in the final and got loose in the second half of the race. Took it up on the run in and won well from Delirium Tremens. A $5,000 pot for an A1 competition. Tom, nothing wrong with it.
No, all right, isn't it? You take it. And I think we're going to see more of these competitions, Ian, because we have a limited pool of open class dogs. So to keep throwing big money at the top class dogs, you're going to end up with smaller fields and the whole lot. Like, so I think we need to start looking at A2, A3 competitions for 5, 7, 8, 9 grand. And it encourages lads to keep dogs for these competitions too, you know. So it was great to see $5,000 for what A1 was it?
It was an A1 competition.
A1, $5,000. That's all right. Yeah,
phenomenal. Great stuff. Last but certainly not least, we have to mention the Cork Oaks, which went to Mary's wedding. Obviously, her brother was flying the flag at Shelbourne Park and Ballymacfin in the Easter Cup, but we could see that she was coming back to form. She had won her previous 2 rounds, but on Saturday night again, she was just thoroughly professional, winning from trap 5, took it up around the 3rd bend, I think, beat Burgess Rapid by 5 lengths in 28-31. She's coming to a boil, just lovely. I would assume the Oaks would be very much her target.
Yeah, did she finish second in the Oaks last year, was it? She's a serious bitch, and they don't spare her either. She has a lot of running done under her belt, a serious. But she's Ballymac. We said it earlier on how tough the Ballymacs are. Liam Dowling doesn't spare his dogs either. He gets them out and gets them running, and I think maybe some of us are a little bit too cautious. The more running some dogs get, the better they get. But definitely Mary's wedding off the Ballymac line. She's a serious.
Yeah, she ran up the puppy Oaks, and she actually went out early enough in the Oaks itself, before obviously reaching the Derby final. So Mary's wedding set for a big year. Lots going on, Tom. But from your point of view, it all circles around the action at Limerick.
Yeah, definitely for the next 5 weeks anyway, Ian. It's going to be the Kirby, and that's what it's all about. As I said there, I mean, we're seeing dogs now. We're going to be on our lips for the next 2 years. Isn't that the way you want it? Quality dogs, quality bitches. As I said earlier on, we had a huge batch of bitches for the last couple of years. I see a huge top quality dogs coming through at the moment. I think we're going to be in for an exciting couple of years, and not to mind the next 5 weeks in Limerick and with the GA clubs involved. I don't know if you've ever been down to the Kirby Inn, but for the buzz that it creates, and especially next Saturday night now with the Dylan Quirk Foundation fundraiser, there'll be a great buzz. The rivalry in Limerick, being a Clareman, of course, Ian, the rivalry is phenomenal between the clubs, and you can see the GA team that they have. You have to be envious of the Limerick hurling team at the moment, and the McManuses are so involved in both the Greyhound industry and in the GA side of things. It's great to see it, and great to see the buzz. And Martinstown, every single night there's people from Martinstown, which is JP's stud, inside watching the racing and just soaking up the atmosphere, to be fair. So it's great to see it,
Yeah, and long may it continue. Yeah,
absolutely.
Truly one of the great competitions in such a short spell of time. The significance of the Kirby is there for all to see. It's such a vital competition to our year. It sets up the calendar for as you say, for dogs, not just for this year, but for next year also. Yeah. And the record of dogs that have come out of the competition is there for all to see. Wonderful competition. Of course, the BresBet Easter Cup continues at Shelbourne Park next Saturday night. The Kirby continues at Limerick next Saturday night. There is top class racing at all your local tracks, so why not venture down? And one last mention, I just want to say congratulations and well done to all involved in Differ Track for reopening their doors last night. It was great to see, and I look forward to getting up there. I won't be going to the gala next Sunday, but if you can make it up to the Northwest, wonderful part of the world, should be a great occasion. I'll be flying out that morning, so next Monday you'll have someone else to deal with, but I'll be back Monday week. We'll be discussing the Easter Cup and, of course, the Kirby Memorial. Thanks again to Tom. Sam has left us, but thanks again to Sam Tweed. I'm not sure if the Exile Double's back next week. I'm not sure who will be sitting. Well, they won't be sitting in this seat, but they'll be sitting in their own seat hosting it. It's probably the main man, Barry Call. But that's it from me on this Monday evening. Again, my thanks to Tom, who's still with me, and to Sam, who we spoke to earlier on in the car. But that's it for us this evening. Good night, good evening, good luck, God bless. All the good looks, whatever. Talk to you next time.
Good luck.